Hi there, this is Neil Bulger at A2 Efficiency, and if you're just tuning in, this is the last video about evaluating heat pump water heaters in EnergyPlus. This is a guide to help you put the components together in the right way for a basic heat pump water heater configuration, size it correctly, and just understand like where do I have to link all the nodes to make sure it works. In this little last video, we're going to go over how would we actually put the water heater indoors. So if we had a storage facility, closet, or a garage, and I wanted to pull and reject heat, or pull heat from that room, reject cooling to that room, how do I plumb that? So previously in the last videos, we just looked at the components of the system. We walked through EnergyPlus and demonstrated how we pulled this apart and where you make all the different inputs. There's a sizing spreadsheet to just make sure you get all the inputs right when you go from basic concept size to model inputs. So use that tool. And in this video, we're just again diagrammatically, we're going to put it inside. As you'll see, we're going to pull cooling or pull heat from one zone. The tank itself can also be put in a zone. We put it in the same zone, but you can actually put it outside if you wanted to, a different zone. There are a lot of inputs in this heat pump water heater set of objects that we are not touching on that you can play with and see how to best represent your design when the time comes. But hopefully this gets you 90% of the way there. All right, so previously we looked at this diagram, which just helps to like represent how nodes are connected between the main heat pump water heater, the tank, what I'm calling the compressor, which they in the software refer to as the heat pump pumped object, the coil water heater, the fan on that compressor that absorbs, that runs the evaporator. So previously I had them in here, but we didn't use them, the air inlet outlet node. Because all the energy was coming from the outdoor node, right? We were sourcing the outdoor node as the inlet, the air then went back to the fan and was exhausted out the system. Now, we're going to not use the outdoor air node, and we're going to use a zone, and we're going to use these air inlet and outlet nodes. We're going to pull air from the zone by adding a special exhaust node that has to be named and called into existence. We're then going to push the air back to the inlet of that zone. There's a node list that combines all the air that needs to come together before it goes in. So we're going to add it to that list. We then need to define this entire piece of equipment, which is represented by this object, water heater, heat pump, pumped condenser, as a piece of equipment that actually now lives in a zone. So there's a zone equipment list. We're going to put it on that zone equipment so the zone knows that it's going to get hot and cold from it. And we're also going to do a little bit more node mapping. You'll see along the way, like the name of the zone, the name of the node we're pushing air back into not only has to go here, it has to go on the fan as well. Oh yeah, this is actually wrong if I think about this. This diagram needs to show, always good to fix. This is now going to go back to this essentially, yeah. Right, so it's no longer going to push this exhaust node. It's going to be pushed to the zone. It's not even directly to the inlet node. There's a list that we'll look at. And then our evaporator inlet node also now pulls from this zone equipment list. So this same node is going to actually now go all the way down into there, I believe. So we'll go check that out. So I realize a lot of lines, the spaghetti that is EnergyPlus, but always fun. Okay, so for starters, this extra exhaust node. So in EnergyPlus, there's what is called the zone HVAC equipment connections. And this is like a very basic component. It just stitches together the air coming in, the inlet, and the return air. What are the names of those nodes for each zone? And then what zone are we talking about? So the name of the zone is first, and you can see here I created a name. I wrote it out myself, heat pump water heater outlet exhaust node. And you can't pull from the return air. You have to specifically pull from an exhaust node. That's key. You'll get an error if you try and pull that node. All right, and then you need to add a node to this node list. So if you saw here, there's an inlet nodes with an S. That actually means like, hey, there could be lots of different nodes trying to send air together into the zone. Sure enough, here it is in a list. And so now we have to add that. So it's the air coming out of the box, and now it's the air coming out of the heat pump water heater. And I made another name for that node. Okay, then with those nodes created, the powers that be, we can now go to the actual main object and use them. We can say, you're going to get inlet air comes from a zone. These are your names for the inlet and the outlet. This is the name of that zone. It'll be a drop down you can pick from for the zone you want. And that is that object. You then have to go to the components. You have to say, well, actually, let's go to the compressor and tell the evaporator, hey, you're going to now get air from this exhaust node from that zone. And then you have to go to the fan and say, and you, the fan, you're going to push the air out back into this outlet node that's going to go back to the zone. And then lastly, I had put this in here. You could even change, if you wanted to, the limits of the temperature for when the compressor switches on or off, but this room should never get this cold, so I wouldn't even bother changing this. I would just leave it. It'll dictate like the curve and how it works. And then the very last piece, right? This is now a piece of equipment that's in the room. Technically, it could be used and called upon to heat or cool that room. And so EnergyPlus wants to know that it is an equipment in the stack. Equipment 1 is our VAV box. Equipment 2 is this object type. It has a name. It's in the second position for cooling and heating. It's mostly going to rely on this first to try and accomplish cooling and heating. So great. But that's the main stuff. So with that, you now should be able to see a change in energy use based on running the heat pump inside a room. The example that we'll put up there is the medium office. It's not the biggest change, mainly because it's a 50,000 square foot building and this water heater is not the biggest energy draw of that building. If it was smaller and the zone is smaller, you'd probably see a bigger difference. Also, if you didn't have a centralized system, you'd see a bigger difference. But you can find it and you'll see a difference in the energy use. So with that, enjoy the resources. Again, this is the last of, I think now 3 or 4 videos. There is a spreadsheet tool for sizing that we went over, this kind of workflow here. There is example energy models that you can go look at. The one that puts it outside, and then this one that puts it inside. And with that, I'd just like to thank everyone. Subscribe on our YouTube channel or follow us. We're going to put a subscribe link on our website, but we're going to be posting more videos to try and help people who are struggling with advancing different energy modeling systems and just understanding how it all works. All right, cheers.